I'll give a brief intro. So I've been on Gary's podcast before. My name is Ben Duffy. I guess I'm an influencer, I'm a therapist, I'm a Dharma teacher, I'm a model. Those are some titles that I wear. But yeah, what's been going on for me recently is I just entered like a 3 week portal where I went to three different music festivals, including Burning Man, and yeah, just really lived life to the fullest. I love those events. I've been going to music festivals for a huge chunk of my life. And yeah, so that's been going on for me. I've been launching my private practice. There's been big things in motion as far as me leading retreats, starting a pretty high production podcast, which is exciting. Yeah, more modeling things coming up, which is like a kind of hilarious flex to mix with the psychotherapy and the Dharma. So, and yeah, we can talk about all of that. I'm curious what you want to dive into.
Well, let's start with festivals, right? I'm interested. What festivals are for, other than maybe hedonism, meeting beautiful women, having a good time? Do you feel maybe that's it? Maybe that's really as far as they go. But in your words, like, what do you find a festival grant you? What do you get out of going to festivals?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the person, right? And like I said before we actually started recording, is it depends what you want. You know what I mean? If you're locked in a kind of what I would call just a tight worldview, maybe something restricted, you have a solidified sense of self and this delusion of finality with death. Maybe you just want hedonism. I want maximum good feeling, minimal good feeling. So let me go party with a bunch of bad chicks and hopefully smash, and then add that to my egoic little greatest hits list. And so it depends on the person. For me, it's like I want to sink my teeth as deeply as I possibly can into life. And I want to take chances. I don't want to live thinking, oh, what if? What if I took that chance and went to Burning Man, but I never did because money wasn't right, or I had things to do, or I didn't know anyone there. Like those sorts of really just forks in the road in life. They define you, I think, in a sense. So for me, it was less about I want a goal. The goal is to, for me, check it out, see what's up. And also, I think festivals, for me at least, tie really deeply into psychedelics and using certain substances as legitimate medicine. And I know things are changing, but maybe some people still have this preconceived notion that because the government made it illegal, then it's bad for you. Okay, weed is illegal. Is that really that bad for you? Mushrooms, I can say from my own experience, have cured me. LSD opens your mind. DMT takes you to a very different place in the solid reality. There's medicinal benefits to all of these substances when they're used right, with the right intention. So I go to music festivals, and it's a good place to explore that, to open up to these different substances, see where they take you, see how intimate you can get with your own mind.
Oh, yeah.
As far as all the flavors of, especially in a festival setting, like intense social interaction. You're dancing with people. You're talking to a ton of people. How do you finesse that? You know what I mean? When you're very open, very in an expanded state, in a sense, vulnerable. How do you ride those waves? And for me, on psychedelics in those social settings, it feels like snowboarding in a sense, where it's like you're falling and you're finessing it. You're kind of finessing weird experiences with people, finessing, talking, spitting some game to a cute girl. You're finessing like your friend, blacked out. What do you do? Like, so it's this really formative experience where you become very open and sensitive to the world. And then you learn how to relate to it in a very skillful, beautiful way. And so that's kind of why I go to festivals. Why do I go to festivals? Again, it's almost hard to describe, but it is just that I want to sink my teeth as deeply as possible into life. And
Yeah.
I'll stop after this because I'm just riffing. But
You good?
again,
No, this is
like
great.
like we talked about before we started recording, is there's a flavor of freedom in the Dharma, in Theravada Buddhism in particular, that is being free from desire. But There's another flavor of freedom that is actually being free within desire. So letting yourself being taken by that current, by that flow of the desires coming through you to explore the world, to again taste all the complex, deep, rich elements of experience. And that includes things that could be perceived as hedonistic activities. Like I want to hang out with beautiful ladies. I want to dance to dope music. I want to really again be with this world. And I think the distinction there is this coming from a place of ego, of scarcity, I need more or else, or is it coming from a place of soul, of recognizing death isn't real, it's in your mind and doesn't exist anywhere else? At that point, there's not this scarcity of experience where, oh, because I'm dead, or because I'm gonna die, I have to, again, collect, consume the maximum number of experiences, things, intimate partners. It's a different relationship. When soul is guiding you, when I say spirit is living through me, speaking through me, uh, when I say that the desires in my heart are actually not mine in the sense of they're not Ben's. What if they were spirit itself coming through you? How would you relate to them? Would you push them away? Or would you open to them? And for me, it's almost sacrilegious to feel desire and to not open to it in a healthy way. And it's an art because if you just open to desires in an immature kind of way, it leads to that hedonic treadmill where you're just sort of in samsara. But there is a way, a very slight tweak in that path can actually open you up to a very much more expansive, liberating way to really, again, taste this life fully and not be afraid.
Yeah. Now, what would you say is the slight tweak? It's how we see the desires, like how we relate to the desires.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say the slight tweak for me is again how we relate to them. Are they mine? Are they little Bens? Or are they God creation, source itself trying to speak through you, trying to live through you, trying to
Yeah.
see and experience the world through your eyes, through your lens? And there's also an element of letting go of I don't need these things to be really deeply fulfilled and happy. I've done the meditative path, I've done the Dharma path, I've been at the monasteries, the Zen centers, and really dedicated a good chunk of my life to that, to recognize, oh, if I want to be really deeply content, then I sit. I meditate, I let go into simplicity. And all of a sudden everything becomes clear, and that real, really profound luminosity just is recognized. So when we have that perspective, when I have that perspective, I feel free and comfortable to explore this world and recognize that I'm not going to get lost in the crazy experiences, in the chicks, in the psychedelics. I know where real deep contentedness lives, and it lives in the simplicity. And recognizing that, then it's just a matter of how deep do you want to dive into life. And this is where, for me, there's the necessity of daily practice as well as retreats. And I mean meditation practice to connect you back with that simplicity of like, oh, I don't need any of this shit. I don't need it. I'm good. And recognizing that, again, just as a means of recognizing the limitation of this phenomenal material world. It can never give you everything that you want. And in a sense, that's actually a beautiful thing. But
Yeah.
don't have the expectation that you can find it out there, that you can find that contentedness and satisfaction out there. You never will. Only if, you find it in yourself. And yeah, so this brings me to the notion of path, of is there an end goal in this dharmic path? And in our last conversation, I spoke to this a little bit too, but ultimately we are creating the path and we're creating our vision of what the end of that path would look like. So, and that leads me again to the question, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want deep contentedness, profound peace? Do you want to be liberated from suffering? Or do you want to sink your teeth into this world and see what you can do in this form, see what spirit wants from you? So, yeah, no right or wrong. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm just, riffing.
I don't even remember what the question was. Yeah, we're just riffing here.
Yeah, I think it was something about.
That makes me wonder.
Yeah, go on.
Well, that makes me wonder, what do you want, right? Because we all have desires. You can ignore them or embrace them, but we all want something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we all want the same thing? Like there is a greater
Mm,
want, and then within
mm,
that greater want are all our little mini wants within
mm.
our own karma. Do you think there is
Yeah.
like an overarching want that we could describe?
I I honestly will say off the top of my head, I don't know. But I will say, just thinking about that, I think given the ground of emptiness of shunyata, I think probably a lot of your viewers, listeners probably understand emptiness to some degree.
Yeah.
So, understanding the mind is constructing experience. Actually, it's our conceptual understanding about the world, our narratives that also inform what we want. So, again, for instance, if I hold this view that what I am is this body and mind, and when this is gone, what I am is completely annihilated. That's an empty perspective that then informs what we desire. So, and then when we recognize sort of egolessness, when we recognize that this thing called Ben never really existed outside of your mind, we enter a much more expansive experience where then what I want is to serve. It leads you into the
Yeah.
bodhisattva ideal of Mahayana Buddhism, where all I want is actually to give because that's actually what feels best.
Yeah.
And I made a video on this, which is like, you hold the door open for somebody, or you bring someone coffee, or you take somebody who's sick to the hospital. It feels good to be of service. So imagine if you gave your whole life to service. How good do you think that would feel? So there's understanding our conceptual narratives, our conceptual worldview, which is empty, informs what we desire. And then it's actually kind of a feedback loop. What we desire informs our conceptual narrative and worldview. So from that point, it's hard to say that there is a universal want. I think, I mean, I could argue for both sides. I could say there is no universal want. And then I could also say the universal want is maybe more goodness. I don't think that's actually true, though. What
Yeah.
about like Hitler? I don't. Some people want to watch a world burn. I think that's actually
Well,
true.
he was still striving for goodness though.
Yeah, in a warped kind of way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's still the same want of like serving in some
Right,
strange way.
exactly. And are you familiar with the law of one?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So they talk about service of self or service of other. There's service going on at
Yeah.
every moment. And in our culture today, we've been sort of trapped in the contracted form of self, where all I'm in service to is this tight, delusional experience of what I am, my identity being this, thing called Ben, which is again made up. So most people are trapped in that, again, that conceptual narrative that this is what I really am. That's, again, it's only in your mind. It doesn't exist anywhere else.
Mm.
And what happens if you say, wait, what if I'm not just this? What if this is a body and a mind? But that does not imply that it's me. It's a slight distinction that makes quite a bit of difference. Where the more you kind of do that path of inquiry of what am I, and you don't find an answer, a really, a fulfilling answer, the more you get acquainted with the void, with the emptiness, where there is no word, there is no phrase, there's no concept that can pin it down what you are. And again, at that point, when you're so free, all you want to do is help people because literally you see people just riddled with suffering. And then from my perspective, I'm like, there's no fucking reason.
Yeah.
There's no reason. It's delusion. It's just we're believing made up ideas to be
Yeah.
objectively real. And one teacher I love, Andrew Holochek, has said it's like you're at a sleepover and all your friends are like having nightmares and they're like freaking out. And all you want to do is just wake them up. You know what I mean? So, and that's the thing. That is bodhicitta, right? That's the desire of the awakened mind to just serve because it's almost just obvious. Like I'm good, but these people are, really having a tough time. So how do we fix that? And also recognizing that those people over there are not separate from you.
Mm-hmm.
They are you. It's the same seer that has seen my life through my eyes, that lives in my world. That same seer is the same seer that lives through their eyes and is living in their world that may very well be rooted in delusion and be, again, riddled with suffering. So that is you. are you sure you're really okay with just letting them suffer? Because it's you in a more expansive version. And that's the thing with understanding, really kind of enlightenment, the egolessness here, is that it's a double-edged sword, right? Where you recognize that I'm deathless, I can never die, I'm everything in existence in the universe and beyond the material universe. But that means I'm also taking on the suffering of everything in the universe because it's me. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't want to acknowledge that because it's and that's part of I think really the maturation of consciousness, where we're stepping into adulthood of recognizing what we are beyond the human narrative, beyond the egoic narrative. We're recognizing we are everything, and it's our responsibility to take care of that everything.
Well said. Yeah. And I think that's where the service comes from, is that insight of all is one. And when
Mm-hmm.
you do truly realize that and bring it into oneself, you see that oneself extends outwardly and you can't help but serve. There is no other way but serving. How can
Mm-hmm.
I not? It's like not serving my own body. It's like not taking care of my hand, right?
Yeah.
It's like seeing
Boom.
another person as another appendage in some sort of way.
It's giving
So
me chills. It's
yeah,
giving
that's
me
where it comes
chills.
from, man.
Yeah. And so then I want to bring this back full circle.
It's
How does this yeah, go on.
I was gonna say it's the truth. We got a little delay here. I think we got to work with.
I know we do have a
Be
little
mindful
delay,
of that.
but we'll figure it out. Yeah, I'm just happy to talk
Yeah,
with you, man. We have great conversations, so and we can just keep cranking them out,
yeah.
man. We got a good chemistry, but yeah, I want to bring this back to talking about the festivals because a lot of people might hear what I'm saying about selflessness and be like, "Well, aren't all these festivals for you?" And I would say it's not that black and white actually. So in service of
Hmm.
self, a lot of the time can be in service of the other two. So it's like in a relationship, if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of the person you love? And at
Yeah.
the same time, I think leading by example to honor what Carl Jung would call the diamonds. If you're familiar with Jung's work, the diamond is almost angelic beings in Greek mythology, and they come to you with messages, and it can be desire to explore with people, with experiences, with food, with your body, whatever. It can be anything. A desire to leave a relationship, a desire to get a new job, a desire to really commit to somebody. Those are diamonds. And how do we honor that? Again, recognizing whose desires are these. And at the same time, can we hold that view of recognizing that I need to honor my desire and what I want, how I want to live my life? And can we merge that with the bodhisattva ideal,
Yeah.
where what I want becomes actually the want of the world and the cosmos itself? And for me, there is something very deep that I've had a relationship to spirit for a long time at this point, and now just sitting like in the mountains or in a park and looking up at the sky or at the trees and just asking, "What do you want from me? I'm yours.
Mm.
Just let me know. Please clear my mind when it's clouded. Give me strength. Give me courage. I'm yours. Let me know." And just asking that, putting those words out there, you start to sort of get answers in interesting ways. And then again, just reaffirming, like, I mean, my life is in service to you, to us, to we. There is no separation. And to let yourself be a real, pure, unblocked conduit of really the will of creation. The word Ram Dass, the great spiritual teacher, means servant of God. And understanding we can all be that. And actually, we all are that if we can get out of our own way and open up to more expansive, less diluted, contracted ways of seeing ourselves in the world.
Amen. We're all Ram Dass.
Mm-hmm. If you choose to be. But for me, I think something really potent opens up when we recognize the win-win kind of just quality of being in service to others. Where when I am in service to others, not only am I, again, trying to help other people, trying to help this world, and thus making it a better place, ideally, um, but also I'm loosening the grip of the solidified self. Because interestingly, I found that insights, in order for them to be consolidated and solidified, you need to act uh, through them. You need to be informed by those insights. So if we're really all one, you actually need to be in service to others to reaffirm that experience where we are all one. It's not just me and this separate mind and body. So it's got this win-win quality where we're loosening the grip of the solidified ego, which is suffocating. Because again, the more we try to fulfill this ego, the more we're spinning our wheels in the mud. Because there's never an endpoint where this ego is fully satisfied. No matter how many experiences you have, how much money you have, how much power you have, it's always going to be inherently unsatisfied because it's actually not real. It's this fragile construct which only exists in your mind. And that gets tricky because this fragile conceptual idea really then gets projected onto our lived experience, where this mind and body all of a sudden is what I am. It's not inherently. We're projecting that experience onto this. So again, I think I'm honestly just curious what happens when the whole world is really, or even just a community of people, recognizes the value of selfless service. But at the same time, I think when you are so selfless, it's almost like you don't need other people to be as selfless. But imagine there's one motherfucker that just takes advantage of everybody. You know what I mean? It kind of fucks it all up. So it's like, It's a delicate structure. And, there's pros and cons to each. But again, we're all Ram Dass, aka servants of God.
Yeah. And just echoing the point of what you said before, how it's a win-win, and it's not black and white. It's not either or. It's both. It's selfless service and also serving yourself. But I think it comes from, what is your priority? What is number one? Is it yourself first and then others, or is it others and then yourself? Yeah. I think that's the big switch, right?
Totally. And it makes me think, like, in those make or break moments, like, say, you're on the Titanic and it's sinking. Are you the dude that scrambles into the lifeboat and kicks the kid out? Or are you the dude who's like, well, I guess that's a life. Guess we'll call it. The beauty of being able to die for something that you love. You know what I mean? That is that real choice of selflessness. The dude who jumps on the grenade, what do they get out of that, egoically speaking? Nothing. They get the absolute annihilation of their ego, which is a beautiful thing. But that's the thing. It's like we all have that choice. And the tighter we cling actually to our own contracted mind, which the contraction is the self, the ego, the mind actually shrink wraps around this thing. And we get this experience that seems really real, really solid because it's contracted. That seems like that's really what we are. And thus we live in service to it. I like Andrew Holacek, one of my favorite Buddhist teachers at this time, as well as Robert Bea. But Holacek says it's almost like a cramp, like a spasm. Like it locks up, and because it's locked up, it locks up even more. And that's the sense of self. That's the ego. It's like a spasm of the mind that contracts, actually, in his words, in fear. There's some sort of fear. And when there's fear, there has to be something that is afraid. It's a codependent arising, as they say in Buddhism. So, interestingly, the way to kind of work that cramp out is actually to go straight into it, not to avoid it, not to be afraid, but actually to open to the other side of the coin, which is love, the primordial expansive force, where fear could be interpreted as that primordial contractive force. In this never-ending ebb and flow of creation, we need both. But again, too much contraction, and we end up in this delusional experience of, just solidifying the separate self, which is, there's a reason it doesn't feel great, because it's bullshit and it's not really how things are.
Yeah, die for love. I think in some way, especially as a man, that is the masculine imperative, to die for love. And not even necessarily physically dying, right? Maybe you will have to jump on the grave. Maybe you will have to be put up on the cross. Who knows? But I think it's like dying before you die for love, right? Like you die in service. Yes. You know what I'm getting at?
I do. You're giving me chills saying that. That's been a big part of, my own explorations with myself, which is finding that which we're comfortable dying for. And like you said, it could be physical, and that would be a beautiful way to die. Like, an entrance into Valhalla when I'm dying for the people that I love. Not that
Yeah.
that necessarily has to happen, but what does that look like if we take a more poetic, metaphorical perspective on it? Like, how do I die for love? What does that mean? Maybe in an argument with my intimate partner, um, maybe that means me just accepting, hey, maybe I was wrong, and like going into hugger or something like that. You know what I mean? Taking that L, letting my old me die, the me that needs to be right, let it die, and then where are we? We're in more of that expansive love of letting go, letting go, letting go. And it's, again, this isn't black and white, because I think I kind of just made a video on this, but in spiritual circles, um, we think that love is something soft. And then you get a lot of like really gooey spiritual types, and like, to each your own. But at the same time, listen to your heart, listen to creation, listen to God's spirit speak through you. Is that really what spirituality is? Is that complacency, that gooiness? Or is there something hard here? There's something unshakable. There's something really deeply powerful in you, in us, in spirit. And again, being able to hold that duality of that power and that strength and merge that with the gentleness and the flow of what you would call the feminine. So um, it's interesting. I almost see the evolution of humanity. We're learning how to inhabit both, like increasing polarities of masculine and feminine. How can I be really deeply strong and really deeply fluid and adaptable at the same time? It's
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the path. And it's an interesting path as a man to embody divine masculinity,
Mm.
right? Because there's not a lot of good examples out there. So that's what I'm finding. It's like, it's tough to understand what love means from a masculine perspective.
Can I ask, just because I've heard different things from different people, what does divine masculinity mean, look like to you?
Still figuring it out.
Right.
It's tough. It's so deep, but I would say, okay, I would say words to attribute it with are sacrifice, courage, strength, um,
Mm.
just a willingness to endure,
Yeah.
to to triumph, right? There is something like, essentially it's like, as we said, living for something other than yourself. And you could say that as a truth within man and woman, but I think living for something other than yourself is inherent to masculinity,
Yeah.
right? So you don't have to be a man or a woman, but there's something
Mm.
very just primordially masculine about living for something other than yourself.
And liberating. And I
Yeah.
agree with everything you said about the masculine. For me, there's almost like an image that pops in my head when we talk about the masculine, which is, we need the masculine and the feminine. They go together. And the masculine, it almost is that nurturing, protecting, um,
Yeah.
force that allows for the feminine to really bloom into forms. And you see this in, people in intimate relationships. Like, if you want a woman to open to you, she has to feel safe. She has to feel protected, like she's taken care of. And then she just
Yeah.
opens organically. And that's where you can then really connect with that beauty there. And I think you can also expand it beyond just people to the world, right? Like, us in the masculine is that being of service, sacrificing for the beauty of life, and the feminine human form is one of those expressions, but also the earth itself, the divine mother. What does it mean to be a man in service to divinity, to the divine mother, this place, this earth that has given us life? How do we protect it? How do we build a relationship built on trust with the earth? Because I think we act as though the earth is some passive, dead, mechanical, robotic thing. This is a being that we have forgotten how to relate to. And actually, how do we build trust back with this thing when we have,
Mm.
tarnished that relationship? We've just turned a blind eye to the mother. And now we're actually reaping the difficulties of that. So how do we reconnect? How do we, as men, and not just men in, masculine bodies, but like as a culture, enter that divine masculine in service to the mother?
Amen. No pun intended. Amen.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Oh, I had a point. What was it? I don't even know now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I would say toxic masculinity, right? That's a buzzword that
Yeah.
we've all heard. I
Yeah.
think that
That.
is that is the result, like us having this relationship with Earth, this toxic relationship with Earth, is a result of toxic masculinity. It's almost like a reflection,
Whoa.
sort of parasitic nature.
Yeah.
And right now, we're figuring out what divine masculinity is, all in our own way, but also at a collective level.
Yep. And it's interesting, like toxic masculinity, like where does that come from? That was a question that I asked myself. And I think a lot of it is being stuck in that um, delusional experience of solidifying our separate self, where because
Yeah.
I'm separate and I'm alone, I need to do as much as I can to prove the worth of this little tiny man right here. And thus I need to bang as many chicks, make as much money, shit on as many people as possible, just to feel this sense of tiny materialistic power, instead of opening up to the more expansive view of self and reality, where I have nothing to prove. I am creation incarnate. What's there to prove? What is wrong here? You know what I mean? Outside of your own mind. And from that place, sacrifice, like we said with the Bodhisattva ideal, it's actually just natural and organic. It's water flowing downhill. Of course you serve because you recognize what you are. Um, but then in that contracted state, that's that delusion that festers into toxic masculinity, where people are born into that view, that delusional perspective of separation. And as a result, of course, they're going to only care about themselves because that's all that's real to them is this fabricated, contracted notion of self.
Mm.
And for me, the beauty really comes. And again, so Robert Bea, this teacher that maybe we'll get to talk about, he really informed, I mean, a lot of what I know now. But yeah, he talks about just dependent origination. And in this there's many different ways to interpret that phrase, dependent origination. But recognizing we're all God, there's at a very zoomed out level, there could be no wrong because there could be no right. It's beyond duality. There's just creation flowing. And in that sense, if we inhabit a view that is contracted, that is rooted in delusion, this view of a separate ego, and that's all that we are, of course they're gonna be evil motherfuckers running around. Yeah, because they're living in a world that is very honestly rooted in fear. Because like we said before, fear is that primordial contraction that you can feel it in your body. When you're afraid, everything locks up. And so does your mind. Your mind also locks up and it contracts and solidifies. So that contractive force makes very abstract, fluid things seem real, including the self. It's always been abstract and fluid, but the more fear that's in the being, in the being, the more real it seems because it's so tight. And that fear of I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough. And actually, I love this point, the fear of death. So interestingly, with death, this is another in Buddhism, what they would call a dependent co-arising. When we are afraid of death, we are actually solidifying the reality of that event, where that's a real thing. Death is real. And actually, when we solidify death, we're solidifying to a self that could die, both at the same time. And that is through fear of death. So if we want to be free of death and actually free of the stranglehold of the self, we actually need to go into death. We need to spend time with it, really opening with curiosity to explore, what is this? Is it really the annihilation of everything that I am? And how do I know? How am I so sure? Is it because some dude in a suit told me? Some dude in a lab coat? Maybe that's why it's real. Like, for real? We literally haven't even spent any time with these questions. And that's the thing. The more time you spend with death, to actually just build a relationship built on openness instead of contraction. When you can open to death, and hey, maybe it is the ending of everything. If that's your narrative right now, love it. Open to it. And all of a sudden, it'll start to loosen. And then you can start to inhabit different narratives where death is not actually the ultimate annihilation of what you are. Maybe there is no solid death. Maybe it's all in your head. And at that point, when death has really been loosened through actually love and openness, so too has the self. The self has been loosened, and now nothing could die. There's nothing here right now. And then, so it's interesting to see how the mind is again constructing our world, constructing what is real, through contraction, through fear. And actually, the Buddhists would say tanha. So that's the Pali word for craving and clinging, or craving the good, pushing away the bad. Interestingly, when we crave the good and we cling, the mind is constructing something real to cling to. You can't cling to emptiness because there's nothing there. You have to create actually what they would call a delusional experience in order to cling to anything. And same with pushing things away. When I'm in pain and I don't like this, when my girlfriend broke up with me and now my world's collapsing and this fucking sucks, it's natural to push it away. But the more we push away that pain or that suffering, the more we're solidifying it as something real. And this is a feedback loop where the more real I make something through resistance or clinging, the more I can cling to it more or resist it more because it's a real thing. So you see how this is like a feedback loop that turns into that spasm which actually is what trauma is. Trauma from this lens of dependent origination is a spasm, a feedback loop of resistance, thus solidifying the trauma to be real. And now that the trauma has been solidified and real, I can resist it even more. And it turns into this unbelievably tight knot where you poke it a little bit and people have these trauma responses and triggers because it's so painful. And again, you're locked in this, feedback loop of pain, suffering, and tightness. And really, again, the only way to deal with that is to go through it, is to really dive into that trauma, into that pain, into that suffering so that you can come to this place of eventually, and in deeper and deeper ways, it's okay. It's okay that I feel this. It's okay that this happened. It might not be right and might not feel okay. But at some point, you have no choice, actually, but to open to it. And I look at it as actually, these are like knots in the psyche. Trauma is a knot. And the more I resist that knot, the more I'm tightening it. It's like a Chinese finger trap or like quicksand. Yeah. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. And actually, if you want to get out of a Chinese finger trap, you got to go the other way. And instead of resist more, what if you actually loved this thing? What if you could actually just be with it as it is and you didn't have to change it? That's when those knots, you start to loosen them. Those solidified narratives start to be malleable. You can untie that knot that is causing the trauma and the suffering, and then actually retie it in a different way, in a more loose way. You can retie, metaphorically speaking, the narrative that caused your trauma. Say you're a victim of violence or a horrific car crash. If you can make meaning out of that experience through intimacy and familiarity with that experience, the suffering can completely fade out of it, and you can integrate it into your life where you're not afraid anymore. It's not trauma that, make sure nobody pokes it. It's been integrated into your being. And that's the thing. Trauma, no matter what it is, we can integrate it. And the way out is through. And that doesn't make it easy. It's relatively simple, but it is not easy. This is the work of a lifetime. To understand, where is the trauma? Where are these knots in the psyche? What is it about me that I cannot accept? Is it the way that I look? Is it the way that I speak? My social anxiety? Is it the way that everyone else is better than me? You can accept that. And you can let that honestly go and be released. And then you're free and then you're good. And I know that's a fact. And I've seen it working with people. And I've seen it in myself. And people that do have ingrained trauma, they would maybe hear this and be like, that's spiritual bypassing. That's bullshit. Easy for you to say, pretty white dude. And it's like, yeah, at one level, I get that. But at another level, listen to the words that I'm saying. And if you do go into that trauma, it becomes malleable. And this is not something we have to do alone. This is why there are therapists, trained professionals. This is why you have friends and family that hopefully care about you, to be able to hold you as you courageously take the warrior's path and go into that trauma. You go into that pain, that fear of death, to recognize that it doesn't exist the way that we think that it did. Death and trauma, that we can be free of all of it. And then where are we?
We're free.
We're free. We've entered nirvana. We've entered the kingdom of God because it's all loose. It's all loose and fluid and malleable. And that's, again, step one. We untie the knots of trauma, the knots of just solidified, contracted experience. And then we can start to rewrite this, whatever you want to call this. If you want to call this life, cool. But when you call this life, interestingly, you also create a death. What if we didn't call this life? What if we just, again, we could give it a different word. And what if we started to say, hey, maybe we're angels right now? Who's to say we're not? Are you sure we're just human beings right now? Or is there something deeper going on? And is this just planet Earth? Or is this the kingdom of God? And again, I'm using more Christian language right now, but this is just one possibility for the worlds we can construct, for the experiences of self that we can construct, because it's not just conceptual, because these concepts become our lived, breathed experience. So when I say I am an angel, I am here in the service of God, of creation, of the cosmos, it's just as real as saying I'm just a human being, equally empty. The choice is ours. This is and that's the thing. When I say these things, for the most part, everyone gets it. It's like common knowledge. It already resonates. And then it's a matter of practice, where you can hear the words that I'm saying and you can be like, yeah, that's dope, facts. And at the same time, then we snap back in to honestly, just the narrative, the conceptual experience with the most momentum. The materialist, science-based, reductionist worldview that we're swimming through, and we don't realize we're swimming through. It's a projected fantasy, and we can project much more beautiful fantasies than that, and still recognize that they're all fantasies, and recognize this is more of a theater than a solid, tight experience. If, again, you can go into those places in the psyche and loosen those knots. So that was a lot, but I'm curious what you think.
Amen. Amen. You just described true power. That's true power right there.
Exactly.
And I'll bounce off of that and say, it's very true. There's no other way, as you described. There's no other way. We can try and run away from it, but the only way is through. The only way out is in. I like the poetic metaphor of the Chinese finger trap. I never thought of it like that. Mm-hmm. But the more you resist, the tighter it gets.
So and you're poetic. Like, I guess we're just fucked here. Like, and that's where a lot of people stop, is like, I guess this is life. And like, that is one of my pet peeves. And like, I try to have patience, and I do a lot of the time. But again, when you see people suffering and also just allowing that to be their experience, like we're just allowing, we're allowing ourselves to live down here when we don't have to. And a part of my job is just telling people, there's another way, actually. We don't have to just cope. That word, I'm just coping with life. How many people are just coping with life? It's like, no, take the fucking reins and whip that motherfucker and let's go. And and we can make it.
That's again. The warrior spirit.
Exactly. That's warrior. And that's what we've lost. And I think a lot of, again, my whole, beef with spiritual circles today is that it's a little bit too soft and complacent. Where I think there's a place for that. When people have been pushing so hard, maybe in the materialistic domain of life, people are sick of it. And it's like maybe they've recognized the limit of material pursuits. So they're like, fuck it, I don't even care. Why even try? Valid. But then if we enter the more spiritual, unseen dimension of life, again, how we're creating experience, you enter into something infinite, something where you can invest time and energy forever, creating worlds, creating experiences, creating sense of self, creating gods. And I know that to be a fact, where it starts in the mind and then it's projected into the world. And we can create, again, a world rich in gods, or the one God in the monotheistic religions, or we can create a world with no God. Again, in a sense, we're the creator. So pick your poison. What do you want? And so again, the richness of Buddhism that I found through Robert Bea, again, shout out Robert Bea, my favorite Dharma teacher by a long shot. But he said the freedom actually isn't in this way or that way. It's not in Christianity or what you would call dogmatic Buddhism. It's in the malleability of mind. It's in the flexibility. Because the mind, it wants to cling to one story and say, that's objectively it. That's how the world is. That's how I am. I'm a good person. I'm a bad person. Or the world is a solid, real place, or it's a dream. What if you could inhabit both at different times? What if you had the fluidity, the flexibility to actually float between solidified perspectives where, yeah, it's real in one sense. And in another sense, this is basically a dream. And then it reminds me of the Heart Sutra where they say form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And simultaneously, there is no old age, birth, and death. And there's no end to old age, birth, and death. So this is in the Heart Sutra, one of the, most well-known Buddhist sutras. And so at first you're like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like, what do you mean? And then it's like, they're just saying two paradoxical things. But that's the thing with emptiness is it can be both. Because you're free. You can inhabit both perspectives at different times. And that's where the freedom is. To be able to say, yeah, maybe I am Ben and I'm a human. Yes, that's one lens. But I have the flexibility to also be an angel incarnate and have that be equally as real. And that's the thing. There's no end to the narratives, the poetic experiences we can construct. And that's where the freedom is like, if I just solidified around, I'm an angel. That's where you're like, all of a sudden I'm the second coming of Christ, and that's not a good look, and people think you're fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you hear what I'm saying though, that flexibility of mind is that's that point of real freedom.
Yes, the middle way.
Exactly. The middle way between, what did Robbs call it? He said, the middle way between real and not real. It's not that it's not real, but it's not unreal. It's just made up, fabricated, just like everything else. And that's the thing. James Hillman, who's one of my favorite contemporary psychologists, student of Carl Jung, he really honestly has found his way. I don't know if he's super versed in Buddhism. He may have been. He passed away, I think, in 2012. But he talks about basically we're always living through a pair of glass. We're looking at the world through a pair of glasses, a lens, a fantasy. And no matter what we do, we cannot escape that. There will always be some fantasy that we're inhabiting, some lens that we're seeing the world through. And at that point, you might ask, then what's the real way that things are? And my question would be, why does there have to be a real way that things are? What if we could just rest in the not knowing? What if we could open to the void and let worlds flow through us, let senses of self flow through us, and recognize it's all a fantasy, it's all fabricated, constructed in mind? And can we allow that? Can we inhabit those fantasies while also maintaining a direct contact, a direct line of connection to the void, so that we're not trapped in solidified fantasies? Because that's, whether your fantasy is I'm a human or I'm an angel, if you solidify that fantasy, you are trapping yourself in a cage that you constructed. So, and that's the thing. One more thing. I'm on a roll right now. Thank you, Gary.
Keep going. But so, I'm with you.
Actually, a lot of this relates to our basically how tight our ego is. Because again, if there is no real way that things are, that I am, that the ego is, you're stepping into groundlessness where the ego knows it's actually dissolving. So the ego is clinging to some way that I am and some way that the world is, because it needs the world to be a reference to inform itself about what it is. So this is how the ego functions when we're living from that delusional egoic place. We're searching for actually solidified ground. We're searching for some solid ground to stand on. The ego is, because otherwise it might fall into the void and recognize that it's not real and it doesn't actually exist. And so many people, cultures have lived in fear of letting the ego die, letting the ego fall into that groundlessness. We're thinking, we think that's utter annihilation. Actually, this relates to our fear of death as well, the annihilation. But interestingly for me, when I let go into the groundlessness of self, other world, of experience, you recognize that's the place to be. And actually, it's our resistance to groundlessness that makes it so painful. when I'm not resisting being in free fall, you're chilling. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche has a quote that is, the bad news is that we're all in free fall without a parachute. And the good news is that there is no ground. So let go and enjoy the float for eternity, basically.
I was going to quote that, which is wild.
I read your mind. Thank you for planting.
Yes, we're linked up. Beautiful. Well spoken, man.
Thank you.
I don't even know what to say. I just got to sit with that one, take a breath.
Dude,
yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I'm not even, like, I almost like black out when I'm speaking. And it's like, I don't know if I'm channeling something, but it just comes. And yeah, we have good. You bring it out of me though, bro. I've noticed, and Rob Burbea talked about this too. What I say is dependent on who's listening and how they're listening. So with other like interviewers or podcasters, like it just doesn't go to that depth because of the person who is doing the interviewing. So yeah, thank you, my man. I appreciate you holding space and opening things up.
Of course. Right back at you, man. Yeah, it's interesting. I think there is something that we create in these moments, a dialogue that is very novel, you know? And it's tough to do by yourself. Like when you have the right person, something special is created. And that's why I do these things, is because there's something we're creating here that is unreplicable, you know?
Yep. Totally. It's you and I together and what comes through, you know, and it's different for everybody. So.
Amen, brother. Well, let's, you still have time?
I have time. So I'm down to talk again until 4 my time. So that's probably 6 your time. So I got another hour.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that. Like, what makes a good teacher, would you say? What makes a good purveyor of Dharma?
Interesting. A purveyor of Dharma. I think.
Why do you like Rob Burbea?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I would say my favorite teachers are Andrew Holacek, Rob Burbea, Shinzen Young. And I think Shinzen's actually talked about this a little bit, but I think one quality that is essential, obviously, is the ability to communicate effectively and to communicate actually complex ideas, because
in a simple way,
in a digestible way. So simple sometimes. I think simplicity can be really useful, but I think especially in spiritual circles, we tend to put simplicity on a pedestal, when a lot of these ideas, especially when you get into emptiness fabrication, the emptiness of like awareness, even the emptiness of time, these are deeply intellectual understandings. And also when you start to work with image, narrative, and archetype, there's almost a need for detailed exploration to really pinpoint all of the little elements that are impacting experience, that are impacting our fabricated experience. So I would say, the ability to relay sometimes complex information in a digestible way. Like emptiness, when you first hear that word or term that everything's empty, like, what the fuck does that mean? And it's like, what do you mean? Like someone says, the world isn't real. You don't exist. What are you talking about? Like, it's like, but so it takes.
So it's not that easy. It's not that simple, even though it's like a simple thing to just say. You're saying diving into it isn't.
Well, I think there's a place for the simplicity. Absolutely. And I think there's a place for the complexity. But oftentimes, especially in dharmic circles, people say, oh, if it's too much thinking, it's not it. And Rob would say, why? Everything that we are is a product of conceptual experience, really. That's then overlaid. And those concepts are not necessarily simple. Like the world we're living in, the, again, materialist, reductionist, scientism-based world, those are complex ideological systems that, again, get ingrained into the being and then projected as what is real. So in order to break them down, sometimes we need to really dive into those complex systems. And then in order to create new systems, there's a place for that really detailed complexity. So just to bring this back, so the ability to communicate just big ideas in ways that are digestible through simplicity or complexity, but just being effective at communication. Obviously, a deep lived experience of the Dharma, and there's many components of that. For me, I found by far the most liberating element of the Dharma is shunyata. and emptiness. And as Rob says, I just quote Rob so much because he's my favorite teacher, and I wrote my master's thesis basically on his teachings. So he has a quote that's like, understanding emptiness is basically a trump card where you can't go any deeper. And it trumps everything. There's nothing that is not empty, and thus in your mind. That includes suffering. That includes the experience of death and finality. That includes fear. That includes lack. That includes beauty. That includes wonder. All of those things, empty, empty, empty. And at that point, you've hit something really profound, which is you're not looking out there. You're looking in here. How am I constructing experiences of suffering versus how am I constructing experiences of love, acceptance, and connection to God? Recognizing, again, they're all empty. So bring it back again. Basically, a firm, lived, embodied experience of the Dharma. For me, it's been emptiness, but also, there's understanding the aggregates, there's understanding the three marks of existence. And then for me, what I love about Burbea and Andrew Holacek in particular is how poetic the poetry in the words. So understanding that concepts are constructing our world, and we can choose to use what you could call as, more functional language, like, creating a world that's based off of like a user manual, basically. Or you can create a world based on poetry and myth and metaphor. And again, there's no right or wrong, but it's like if you use poetic language, poetic concepts in your mind, you're constructing, fabricating, projecting a world that mirrors those concepts. So something that really drew me into Rob Burbea was how poetic his words are. And because you take a step into his world and you're like, oh, this is a pretty place. And you're like, I like this.
Yeah. Interesting, man. That's a solid point, because if poetry allows you to step into his world, and he is actually realized, he is actually a master. As you said, you kind of have to have this lived experience, this direct understanding yourself. You can't fake it.
Yeah.
So if poetry is the gateway to that, then I can see your point. Like, I can see the power in poetry, because it almost like allows you to link up to his understanding that without poetry wouldn't allow you to allow it to facilitate.
Totally. And you see this not only in Dharma teachers, but in politicians speaking. You see this in anyone who's speaking. Really, also, you can communicate in ways that are nonverbal and receive communication nonverbally, but you're stepping into their world. For me, I've always been a very sensitive person, even eye contact. You might have noticed this too. You can start to step into people's world. If they're, riddled with hate, violence, lust, you make eye contact for a moment and you get a download. If they're living in really deep love, really deep openness, you connect with them and you're taken there for a moment. And just recognizing we're all living in different worlds. Like, it's not out there, it's all in here. And what do you want to make? What garden are you tending to right now? And in the words of Thich Nhat Hanh, I believe it was Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, we all have the seeds of hate, violence, lust, disgust. And we all have the seeds of connection, of acceptance, of compassion, unity. And the question is, what seed do you want to water? So, and I think in his metaphor, he says, awareness is like the watering pan, and you are watering something always. And is it, separation? Is it lack? Is it, I'm not good enough? Is it, I'm scared about death, and that's something we objectively have to avoid? Or is it acceptance? Is it a connection to God? Are you feeding your relationship to the divine through your awareness? Are you feeding your relationship with compassion, with heart qualities, with kindness, and recognizing we're all tending gardens? And I also like that metaphor of the garden, because in a sense, if you don't pay attention to your garden, it gets filled with weeds. And that's where meditation comes in, meditation and contemplative practice in general, to be able to find those weeds as they're coming up and pull them before they take up all the space and take up all the sunlight and all the water from your garden. Because that's the thing. It's like, it's all made up in your head. So if I got a bunch of bullshit of, oh, that person's way better than me, and I think my girlfriend's into him and she's going to leave me for him, Okay, if you don't nip that in the bud, it becomes a festering just source of rottenness, and it'll rot you from the inside. And it'll take all those resources from your garden, from your mind, from your awareness, where you could be putting it in love, connection to God.
And then your girlfriend will leave you.
Boom. Exactly. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
You let that weed.
Yeah. That's the thing too, right? Is we're all creating no matter what. We're watering something no matter what. So there's really no choice. There's no choice but to choose. You have to choose wisely.
Exactly. And I made a video on this not too long ago, but the question really is, at any moment, is where is my mind? Where is it? And does it have to be there? If it's unpleasant, does it have to be there? If it's pleasant, beautiful. How do I bring more of this into my experience? How do I water this plant, this tree, so that it takes up more space in my experience, in my mind? And just asking that question, it's that moment of mindfulness. Where is my mind right now? Is it on lack, separation, or is it on unity? And then actually this is where meditation is really clutch, because beyond even the duality of good and bad, of pleasant or unpleasant, skillful or unskillful qualities, you can come back to something neutral like the breath, inherently neutral. And that takes you actually out of the mind where it has to be good or it has to be bad. It takes you back to this neutral place of a less conceptual experience. I wouldn't say a completely non-conceptual experience, but just the breath. Is that good? Is that bad? And it connects you also into the feeling body, where the complexity and the narratives, they live in the mind, right? And the body, well, they also live in the body in one sense, but I won't go there right now. But the body is very direct. The communication of the body is feeling, is contraction or expansion. And it's you can feel it. I got a lump in my throat. I got a tightness in my chest, or whatever, pain in my knees. It's very direct, and it's not shady, and it's very simple. So being able to use the breath as a tool to plant back, to be rooted in the somatic experience, which is, again, simple. It's not good or bad. It's just there. The good and bad happens up here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It always comes back to the breath and back to the body, no matter what. That's what I find is the importance of physical exercise or yoga in general, just being in touch with your body, because it's sending you messages always.
And that's something I would love to talk about in extent, is physical movement, exercise, and honoring this body, honoring this form. There we go. Nice. And like, and that's something that's been huge in my life. Before I found the Dharma and before I found meditation, in order to work with the pain the suffering I experienced, I was like, I guess I'll just like run and work out until I can't think. And it's pretty effective to a point. And then I realized, I was doing all the exercises and my mind was still haunting me. I still didn't have any dexterity over it, any understanding of it. I was still, getting hooked onto painful narratives about myself and my life. And that's where meditation is necessary. Because when you're spinning your wheels only in the conceptual mind, there's no end. And there's no end. There's no rest. And meditation is that respite. It's that ability to step out of conceptual experience, at least deeply conceptual experience, and into something very, simple, straightforward. And I always tell people, I just made a video on this today actually too, but sitting meditation, in my lived experience, and I know everyone's different, but in my experience, it is single-handedly the best thing a human being can do for themselves. Easily. Just, we're injecting spaciousness into the mind. And that's both a metaphor and also very literal. Like in your life, how much space are you taking to do absolutely nothing? And I don't mean nothing like watching Netflix and smoking a spliff. I mean nothing like you're sitting and opening up space. And that's the thing. When you open up space in your experience, you open up space in the mind. And all of a sudden these tight problems get a little bit more space. And you can start to untie them and resolve them and come to conclusion, come to resolution. Because I think there's nothing wrong with the mind. The mind gets a bad rap, especially in spiritual circles. It's more we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to take care of it. And meditation is how you do that. It lets you sit in, again, spaciousness to make meaning out of the past, where I can interpret the past. I can come to a point of resolution, why I had that conflict, why I had to say that to that person. And, whatever. You can come to that point of resolution where then you're not dwelling on it. And also you can look to the future and you can plan your day. You can plan your life. Actually, that's an inevitable consequence of meditation is, what am I doing? What am I doing today, tomorrow? What am I doing, period? And you get to create inevitably some sort of path. And obviously, that path would probably change, but just to allow the mind to come to that point of resolution. Because the reason the mind is spinning so fast is because there's so many unresolved things going on. And it's trying to figure it out. And it's like, and for most people who don't practice, it can feel like this just cloud of static where I'm just anxious and I have no fucking idea why. and
Yeah.
And meditation allows us to, again, come to those points of resolution about the past and the future so that we can be really deeply present. And that allows us to be present with our work, be present with our creative pursuits, to be present in our interpersonal relationships, to be present with the delicious food that I'm eating. It just improves every component of life. And I say that so literally that it is the best thing you can do for yourself. And also simultaneously for most people, the hardest, at least at first, because it's so different. How often, when you got your mind spinning and there's a trillion things to do, how hard is it to sit and do nothing? And as we said,
it's the hardest, easiest thing to do, or the easiest, hardest thing to do.
Exactly. Because all you're doing is sitting. It's the mind that makes it so difficult. And I just want to bring this back to something we said earlier, where it's the hardest thing to do. And guess what? The obstacle is the way. The obstacle is that way. And that's the thing. So many guys, especially because we're, talking about masculinity earlier, guys are into, the gym, lifting weights, sauna, biohacking, doing difficult things. Let's run ultra marathons. I run ultra marathons. But at the same time, what about meditation? That seems like something, an edge for people who love to push themselves, where what would happen to a David Goggins type character if he sat in a meditation retreat for 2 weeks? Like, really, that's curious. But it's the same thing. Suffering. You're going into the mind and how painful and how scary it is. And can we again flip to the internal as opposed to just the external, and recognize where are the obstacles in here, and what would happen if I actually fought those battles? Or, it really is like a battle of love, and it sounds corny saying it, but it's true. It's like, how deeply can I love all these parts of myself? How deeply can I love this world that's in so much pain? How deeply can I love this world that is suffering unfairly? There's injustices on the TV all the time. Can I love that? And it's not that you have to, it's an open question. And in my life, it seems like it's an intimate relationship with life, not a sexual relationship with life, but deeply intimate, where sometimes life fucks you and you're like, what, why? And it's this dance. And sometimes you turn your back on creation. It happens in big and little ways. And it's this dance of love coming together, that separation. And it's, we all have this intimate relationship with life beyond the, again, solidified characters in it, the beings. We could just say it's life, period. Life is dancing with us. And we get to learn how to dance with it, with the suffering, with the fact that things are unfair, with the fact that there are tragedies happening right now, and they could very well happen to us in this lifetime. And that's the thing. Can you love that? Because if you can't, that resistance is going to create suffering and potentially trauma. Can you allow it? Can you recognize this isn't personal? There is no person here for it to be personal with. Can we let it flow through us? Let the pain, let the trauma, let the contraction, can we just let it flow through us without saying this is wrong or this does not fit my narrative for how my life was supposed to go? How often do we get stuck on that? I didn't predict this. I didn't predict that my partner was going to get sick and pass away. I didn't predict that I was going to lose my job. I didn't predict that we were going to get nuked in 2026. All those things are on the table. And can we open to it?
Well spoken again, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the meditative mindset, sowing the seeds of meditation is not bypassing whatsoever. It's like a foundation of stability no matter the circumstances. There's no other way. It's like creating this ultimate potential point. So whatever kinetic energy wants to flow through you and to you, you're able to digest, right?
Mm,
You're able to be tranquil with, you're able to transmutate it in some way and write the script, as we said before,
yeah.
right? It's, there's no other way, actually. There's no other way.
And that's what separates somebody like you and I. I mean, I don't think we're fundamentally different from anybody. It's just that
No.
understanding of there is no other way. It's all
Yeah.
in here. And can I work with my relationship to life, my relationship to others, my relationship to suffering, as opposed to trying to, in a sense, bubble wrap the world to make sure I don't suffer. That will never work. It will never work. No matter what, you got to die sometime. The Buddha,
Hmm.
Siddhartha was old age, sickness, and death. Once he saw that, he was like, "Fuck, what do I do?" There's no way to avoid it,
Exactly.
and that's
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's that recognition.
Yeah. I like the idea of a relationship with life. It's very tantric in that way.
Yeah,
Like I had the thing that ran through my mind a few days ago. The point of life altogether is to fall in love with it, to fall in love with love, maybe. Like you could see your intimate relationships with women or men, whoever, with anything really, as like a metaphor or a reflection to what life is all about. I feel like every relationship with a person or a thing is really just a reflection for the basis of what this whole thing is about,
yeah, and
right?
the whole notion. I don't even know where this quote came from. I think it was Plato, maybe. As above, so below. This is a fractal existence. What happens at the low level is a mirror of the higher dimensions. So
Mm,
again, it's a microcosm in a sense. My relationship to the feminine is my relationship to life a lot of the time. My relationship, you know what I mean? It all is kind of mirrored components of one thing.
yeah.
How do I relate? How do I relate to this being? Like again, it's so interesting. We were talking about our relationship to the divine mother, the earth, um, and toxic masculinity, and then how the toxic masculine relates to women, like human women, you know, and it's all one thing. It's all one thing, and we can approach it from the very zoomed out lens of how do I approach the feminine as Mother Earth, and see if I can create a more skillful relationship with the earth. I wonder how that affects my relationship with the feminine in human form. And it is really interesting. We can also address how do I respect, again, the feminine in human form. How do I treat that? What's my relationship to the feminine in the human form, and does that inform and affect how I relate to the feminine energies in the cosmos as a whole? Because again, it is like microcosms. I like
Yeah.
when I was at the Zen Center in Vermont. Soryu, the teacher there, he said, "How you do one thing is how you do everything. Do you cut corners? Do you act in deception when people aren't looking? How you do one thing is how you do everything. Do you act in integrity and honor? How you do one thing is how you do everything. Even in little ways, do I live selflessly? And then if I live selflessly now, I might be that dude that jumps on the grenade. Beautiful." And I love that we were talking about just that selfless sacrifice, especially in the masculine. What an honor to be able to give your life to something bigger than yourself, whether that be your friends, the people you love, this earth, the cosmos, and as a whole. What an honor. And I think about that too as a man, like, especially when I'm in the mountains by myself, I'm like, I want a beautiful way to die. I really do. I can't wait to find that moment, that opportunity. And it makes me think. I remember hearing about, I forget what it is, one of the just horrendous school shootings. And there was a police officer on duty or security guard or something, and he was too scared to go in there to confront the guy who was shooting up the school, and a bunch of kids died. And I'm like, bro, that's your moment. You get shot in the head. Like, yo, that's how you go out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Oh, I would like, I can't, like, I would
Mm.
love to die like that. And I think that's what the masculine is missing too. That thing where you're like, yeah, we die today. If you're on those U-boats going into Normandy, guess what? Today's probably your day. And are you cool with that?
Mm.
And it's like, it just gets me going. I feel it's like a T-boost just talking about it.
I know, right? I think that's the path.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hero's journey. That's the hero's destiny right there.
Mm-hmm. As a man, especially. And again, how safe does the feminine feel when you're down to die for that? Like, again, yeah, you're down to die for the beauty of existence. Um, that's where they feel like, okay, this guy's got me, and
Exactly.
I love it. And that's what I want to create men's groups focused around like deep spiritual dialogue and understandings like this, and then putting it into practice. Like, what does this mean to be, not that we have to give our lives physically, but is that an option? And if we are willing to really sacrifice like that, what could use our lives? Again, in the we don't have to die physically, but where could I put all my energy? Where could I dedicate my this form, this being? Where can I dedicate its energy to make this place better? What is worth sacrificing for? And for me, that's where I feel so blessed to have been brought to the Dharma, because that is what I am definitely down to die for. I'll just dedicate my life to it because it's a win-win-win-win kind of situation. Like,
It's only W's.
it's
Mm-hmm.
only W's, bro. It's like, yeah, exactly.
I feel that from you, man. I feel that from you, Ben. And it's an honor to do this with you.
Likewise.
Truly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. Keep up the good work. I think that might be a good note to wrap this up
Yeah.
at, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. And likewise, man. I love these conversations. I'm down to talk with you anytime. This is the beginning.
For sure. It's the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
End of a podcast, but a beginning of something else.
Exactly. More podcasts.
Do you have anything else?
No, not particularly. I mean, just to give my socials a shout out, I guess it's I mostly post a lot of stuff on Instagram. I have a YouTube page called Perception Architect. I think that's it. Also, my Instagram is DuffDaddy100. So my name is Ben Duffy. So DuffDaddy 100 is my handle. I think that's it. Yeah, a little plug.
Awesome. Beautiful, Ben. Thank you for joining me.
All right.
Keep up the good work, and that's it. Peace and love to you, man.
Yeah, I love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you too, man. Peace and love, everybody.